Hello and welcome to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, your weekly dose of the top pro-life news and issues from a Catholic perspective. I'm Catherine Seltner in our Washington, D.C. studio. Here's what you can expect in this show. We go to Rome to hear how the church upholds the dignity of each and every person. Twitter attempts to censor a pro-life campaign ad, and this.
If I'm an actor and actress and I come out as pro-life, the mainstream media is going to nuke me.
Film producer Jason Jones tells us how the pro-life movement needs to take on Hollywood. But first, our top story, the Trump administration's Health and Human Services issues a new contraceptive mandate, granting relief to religious nonprofits and others with deeply held religious or moral convictions regarding contraception. This means more groups will be protected and not forced to provide abortion-inducing drugs, sterilization, and contraception under threat of heavy penalties.
Preventive care should include coverage of contraceptive services such as birth control.
While the original rule established by the Obama administration is still in place, now some groups can be exempt from the mandate if they can demonstrate a religiously based objection to the mandate's demands. We discuss what this means for the Little Sisters of the Poor with one of their representatives, but first we go to Capitol Hill. We're joined now by Tennessee Representative Diane Black. Congressman, thank you for your time.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's great to be with you, Catherine.
In January of 2016, you submitted a bipartisan amicus brief filed with the U.S. Supreme Court and signed by 207 members of Congress in support of the religious nonprofits and charities challenging the HHS contraceptive mandate. Why did you want to be involved in this debate in the first place?
Well, because I believe in our First Amendment and our religious freedom. It is essential. It is the very basis of who we are in this country, so that when people have deeply held beliefs, that the government doesn't have a right to come in and say that you can't have those deeply held beliefs. And it is a fundamental right that we have as a U.S. citizen.
What do you believe is at the core of this debate? Is it about access to contraception, as Planned Parenthood would have you believe?
Listen, we see women who can get contraceptives at health departments. If they are at a lower income, they are free. So contraceptives are available. I think this is more for those who want to see our religious freedom taken away from us, where they use the contraceptives as the bargaining chip. But the truth of the matter is that contraceptives are available, and when people have deeply held principles, they should not be held accountable for saying we're going to fine you with large amounts to violate their deeply held principles. That is our amendment, First Amendment right, is to have those deeply held principles withheld.
You are now calling for the Justice Department to take action. What exactly do you want to see from Attorney General Jeff Sessions and his team?
Yes, I want to see that they have resolution here to say that no longer are they going to have the Little Sisters of the Poor have to abide by that HH mandate, and that they relieve them and give them resolution from that mandate.
This announcement on the updated HHS mandate came from the Trump administration. But what action on religious liberty can we expect to see from Congress? Where do things stand with the Conscience Protection Act, for example?
Yes, I would love to see us go back and to look at the Conscience Protection Act and be able to pass the Conscience Protection Act. I think it's instructive that when we look back into 1993, which really hasn't been that long ago, just a little under 25 years ago, where you had Senator Schumer that sponsored the Religious Freedom and Restoration Act, and now just this short period of time later, and it's really just a blip in our history to see that we're not honoring religious freedom like we did back even just 25 years ago. And if this were to continue down the road that it is right now, it's really scary to think what my children and grandchildren might be under as far as federal regulation when we don't honor our First Amendment right of religious freedom in our Constitution.
Congressman, as a registered nurse, what do you believe is the role of religious liberty for pro-lifers who simply want to carry out their work and not violate their conscience?
That's right. Look, I'm pro-life all the way down to my bones, and I want to be sure that everything that we do here in Congress honors folks that are pro-life and that do respect life. And we know that a life is a life. And so everything that I can do as a congressman to ensure that we continue to be able to live our deeply held principles, I will do.
Representative Diane Black of Tennessee, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
For reaction and continued analysis, we are joined in our D.C. studio by our trusted experts. Marjorie Dannenfelser is president of the Susan B. Anthony List, and Monse Alvarado is executive director of Beckett, the religious liberty law firm defending the Little Sisters of the Poor and EWTN. Thank you both for being here.
It's great to be here with you again.
It is so good to have you both. Now, Monse, what does this update mean? Have the Little Sisters of the Poor won case over?
I wish we could say that, but Friday was a phenomenal day for religious liberty. The new interim final rules really overturned the mandate and went beyond the protections that we expected to see. So it's a phenomenal update. For the Little Sisters of the Poor, however, their cases still need to be resolved. And we have to remember why we're continuing to push for their cases to be resolved. Congress can do some incredible things. The executive branch can do some wonderful things to create protections. But when you have a shift of power, those can always go away. When you set strong precedents in court, you're setting a signal that cannot be overturned, depending on who's in power.
Now, Marjorie, what does this update mean for the pro-life movement? Put this into perspective for us.
This is the full force of this past election. This is promises being kept. This is about leveraging those promises being kept in the next election. It's not just power grabs and power leveraging. What it is making sure that this electoral process is vouchsafed for pro-life people, that every promise we have in the Declaration and the Constitution is made real in these elections.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Monse, abortion lobbyists are painting this picture as if the government is taking away contraception from women. Now, the Catholic Church stands in opposition to birth control and all forms of contraception. But how do you respond to this depiction that's being put out there? How many people will this impact?
So this is this wonderful way of creating hypotheticals that don't really exist. No one is missing access to contraceptives here. It's the Little Sisters that are being crushed with fines and being forced to violate their conscience. Those are the women that are being ignored by these groups that are trying to come in and force them to do something that really is against their deeply held religious beliefs. And we heard the Congresswoman talk about how important this is and why we need to protect them and why we have programs that allow the federal government to provide these drugs and services without having to railroad these groups and individuals that do have deeply held religious beliefs.
Now, we both had you here about a month ago saying this updated rule was overdue. It's here, but what took so long? And what more would we like to see from the Trump administration on this?
Well, I think, like, when it comes to our family, our friends, our pro-life community, our political allies running government, it's not as easy as it looks. But that is one thing. On another point, I think that it's really important that we make sure that confirmations are happening. I think it's really important that our voices are heard within our friendship community, within the administration, that these confirmations in all aspects of government, in the at HHS, at the Justice Department, and at State Department, that those confirmations happen. And I think, frankly, that's the big lag. I do not believe it is a lag of will. I think it's been a lag of bureaucracy. I really do think that's true.
We spoke with the Little Sisters of the Poor a few months ago about this court battle, and this is what Sister Constance Feet had to tell us. Let's take a listen.
I never get discouraged, even when things weren't looking good, because we know God wins in the end. You know, we know who has the final victory, and if we place our confidence in Him, things will work out.
Monse, what's it been like to work with the Little Sisters throughout all of this?
What an incredible joy. And what a great gift they are. Working with the Little Sisters of the Poor has really given us a window into what it's like to be selfless and giving and truly live out your Catholic faith every day.
Marjorie, turning topics a little bit, we have now seen the pain-capable bill introduced into the Senate. How crucial is this pro-life battle at the Senate level right now?
It is crucial. This piece of legislation will divide the sheep from the wolves, and when it comes to Senate elections and all the battleground states that we're looking at coming up in 2018. We have a vote coming up very soon in the Senate about a 20-week bill, just stopping it at that very modest place. I think, you know, we've said it on this program many times, but We only have a handful of countries that we're in the Human Rights Club of. It's Vietnam, China, North Korea, and a few others. We've got to change this in our country. If you can't do that, and you are a U.S. Senator, then you need to move into the private sector. We're doing all we can in the pro-life movement to make sure that these Senate elections in 2018 hold those senators accountable that vote negatively on this bill. I think it's a reach, not short of it, but there are always miracles that for us to pass this bill. It's possible, but we definitely need to make our voices heard in every single Senate office to see if we can possibly get to that margin.
And we will be watching those senators and holding them accountable. Thank you both for your work and for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last week, we saw the House of Representatives pass the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, a bill that would ban abortions at 20 weeks. Then we saw the pro-life bill introduced into the Senate. Now, we need you, EWTN viewers and pro-lifers, to ask your senators to urge GOP leadership to bring this bill up for a vote as soon as possible. Here is this week's call to action. Here's what you can do this week from wherever you are to advance the pro-life cause. Go to ProLifeWeekly.com. Simply type in and submit your information. This will send a message to your senators. They need to urge GOP leadership to bring the Pain-Capable bill up for a vote as soon as possible. President Donald Trump has already promised he will sign the pro-life bill into law if it comes to his desk. But the only way it will get there is if it passes the Senate. The U.S. is only one of 7 nations to allow abortion up to birth for any reason. This has got to end. We need to take a pro-life step forward, save unborn lives, and put a stop to late-term abortion. Go to ProLifeWeekly.com and urge a Senate vote on the Pain-Capable bill so we can end late-term abortion. Turning now to more pro-life news, we go to EWTN's Valeria Longhi for the top headlines.
Bolivia is expanding its abortion law. The South American nation will now permit students and women who have children, persons with disabilities, or elderly persons under their care to get an abortion within 8 weeks of gestation. Bolivia will also allow young girls and adolescents to get an abortion done at any stage of their pregnancy. Doctors will be forced to perform abortions at the patient's request, even if it goes against their conscience, but medical staff can opt out.
Como discípulos misioneros, debemos rechazar lo que va en contra de la vida. Debemos anunciar la esperanza y el valor de la vida capaz de vencer la cultura de la muerte.
That's Bishop Eugenio Scarpellini of El Alto, Bolivia. Shortly after the vote, Bishop Scarpellini says the new law sends the message abortion is the only option for women in these tough situations. He motivated Catholics to reject all that goes against life and to preach hope. An Oklahoma judge overturns a 2014 law banning off-label medications used for abortions. The judge had ruled against the law before, but it was appealed by the state. State Attorney General Mike Hunter issued a statement against the latest decision, saying the 2014 law prevents Oklahoma abortion providers from using very dangerous abortion methods even Planned Parenthood has discontinued using. He intends to appeal the latest ruling. German pharmaceutical company Bayer halts the sale of its Essure birth control everywhere except the United States, its most popular market. Essure is a nickel and polyester coil inserted into a woman's fallopian tubes that prevents eggs from reaching the womb by causing scar tissue growth, and has received the strictest possible FDA warning for its side effects. Reported side effects include chronic pain, bleeding, and severe allergic reaction. The Catholic Church continues to stand firm in opposition to any form of contraception. Valeria Longhi, EWTN, Pro-Life Weekly.
Thank you, Valeria, for your report. This week, in collaboration with Catholic Relief Services and Catholic Charities USA, the U.S. bishops are calling for a week of prayer and action in solidarity with migrants and refugees. It's part of the 2-year Share the Journey campaign, and we thought this would be a good opportunity to shine a light on how the Church upholds the dignity of every life, including the unborn and the immigrant person. Michelle Roth, Secretary General of Caritas Internationalis, joins us now from Rome, Italy. Caritas is the group behind the Share the Journey migration campaign. Michelle, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Catherine. Happy to be with you tonight.
First off, what is the goal behind this new campaign, and can you describe the current plight of migrant persons today? Why is this something Catholics should be paying attention to?
Well, the reality of migration is a reality which has increased over the years in this globalized world for many reasons. But people who are facing war, conflict, violence on one side, but also people who are facing more and more difficult life because of climate change, for instance, are moving. I think the images they see on television is also an invitation for them to move. But most of those people are moving because they are forced to. So we speak of forced migration. So the goal of the campaign is to provoke everyone to meet a migrant. Often people are afraid of migrants because they come from another place, they look odd, they may be disturbing your life. So just go and meet one and start discussion, dialogue with them. And out of experience, we know that this changes your vision, this changes your heart, you become open to the other. I think this is very rooted in our beliefs in a God that is Father of all. These migrants are brothers and sisters who arrive. You don't kick them away, you welcome them, you meet them.
Here in the United States, immigration reform continues to be a major policy issue and one that sparks a lot of debate. And last month, Pope Francis made some comments regarding President Trump's decision to end DACA, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, saying if Trump is a good pro-lifer, he understands that family is the cradle of life. What do you think our Holy Father meant by this, and how is the Share the Journey campaign addressing that issue?
As Christians, as believers, we want families to be able to live together, to give the best of themselves, also to give birth to children, to have a normal family life. And so the campaign invites people to meet, and beyond meeting, to welcome migrants. Pope Francis puts the family very much at the core of a lot of his messages. This is hope. During the launch of the campaign, Wednesday last week on St. Peter's Square, together with us were a few migrants who are young people, alone, but there was also a couple of Syrian refugees, and both of them being sick, you could see how strong the relationship between the two was. So family is a natural space for anyone to grow and develop, and we should not deprive the migrants and the refugees from living in family.
Michelle, about 55 million abortions take place globally each year. Those are 55 million innocent lives unjustly killed, and ending abortion remains at the heart of the pro-life movement. But how do you suggest pro-lifers can also uphold and protect the dignity of life for the immigrant person?
Migrants very often and refugees have gone through very difficult times. We may be afraid of them, they are arriving, but in reality they are afraid of us, and they carry on such a suffering that it's very important to be open to them and promote life, promote their life as being important to the eyes of God. I think Pope Francis is choosing very often a reference to migrants and refugees as being the most needy of our brothers and sisters, not needy only of material support, but also of love, very simply of love. To welcome them is something fundamental. That gives them hope, and that gives them life.
Michelle Ra of Caritas Internationales, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
When we come back.
Their intent was to show Jose Eduardo Verastigi's character as a heroic man, not a superhero like Batman or Spider-Man.
We go behind the lens with the producer of Bella and hear the vision of the pro-life film. Stay tuned as EWTN Pro-Life Weekly continues after this break. to have courage for whatever comes in life. Everything lies in that. A quote from Doctor of the Church, St. Teresa of Avila, whose feast day we celebrate October 15th. Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm Katherine Seltner. The social media platform Twitter shuts down a campaign announcement from a pro-life congressman. That's this week's Speak Out segment.
I'm 100% pro-life. I fought Planned Parenthood and we stopped the sale of baby body parts. Thank God.
Those are the pro-life comments that got Republican Representative Marsha Blackburn's Senate campaign announcement blocked on Twitter. A representative for the site told Blackburn's vendors the statement about baby body parts was deemed an inflammatory statement that is likely to evoke a strong negative reaction. Blackburn chaired the House panel that investigated Planned Parenthood and its alleged sale of aborted baby body parts. While the Tennessee candidate's video was never taken down, she was not able to promote it on the social media site. But now, according to a report by Politico, Twitter has since reversed its decision, allowing Blackburn to promote her Senate ad. This censorship attempt has created a pro-life outcry. Here are just some of the reactions. While the ad was still blocked from promotion earlier this week, Representative Marsha Blackburn released this statement saying, "I am appalled by Twitter's attempt to censor my pro-life record, and I believe that the entire pro-life community deserves an apology and explanation for their actions. I refuse to allow an organization whose stated mission is to provide information instantly without barriers, the ability to silence our efforts to protect the unborn." Pro-life groups Susan B. Anthony List and Students for Life also condemned Twitter's action, and pro-life actress Patricia Heaton chimed in, simply saying, "You can do better, Twitter." We have reached out to Twitter for a comment, but as of this recording, we have not received back a response. This attempt at censorship is unfortunately not surprising. The pro-life group Live Action has claimed Twitter refused to do business with them until they agreed to delete offensive and provocative tweets. And while I can't say much more that hasn't been said already, I'll just add this. Twitter, what these pro-lifers are saying is not offensive. It is what Planned Parenthood is doing that should offend and shock us all. Remember, there is something you can do to counter today's culture of death. Go to ProLifeWeekly.com. Ask your senators to urge GOP leadership to bring the pain-capable Unborn Child Protection Act for a vote as soon as possible. This bill would ban abortions at 20 weeks. It's been almost 11 years since the production of the movie Bella, and this week, we get to know the pro-life heart of it even more. In part 2 of our interview with film producer Jason Jones, we hear how the movie Bella has spread a life-affirming message and how Jones thinks the pro-life movement can better take on Hollywood. Here is this week's ProLife Focus. You are an award-winning film producer. I'm sure most of our viewers are familiar with your film Bella, now in its 10th anniversary.
10th anniversary.
What was the inspiration behind that film, and what kind of fruit have you seen come from it?
Well, I came into that project late. I had met the filmmakers, Alejandro Monteverdi, Eduardo Verástegui, and Leo Severino. Their desire was to make a film to show a Latino man as a hero. And their culture, they didn't understand they were stepping on the third rail of American politics. That was not intentional.
Wow.
Their intent was to show Jose, Eduardo Verástegui character, as a heroic man, not a superhero like Batman or Spider-Man, but just an everyday hero, like a good man. And his father was a good man, a hardworking man. And I met them in Mexico City. And when the project was presented to me, I realized that their film could do more to change culture than all the work that I had been doing in my life at that point, I think for 15 years.
How so?
Well, you've seen the film. It's just so beautiful. It's so empathetic. It's not formulaic. It doesn't shortchange Nina, the young woman in her crisis pregnancy's situation and her sadness. And it doesn't even give you an answer in the dialogue. The answer is the family, Jose's family. The problem is this young woman who comes from a family devastated by the culture of death and loneliness and alienation. And the answer is this beautiful Catholic family. That's the answer to the culture of death. And, you know, our goal was to know the name of one woman who chose life because she saw Bella before the 10th anniversary. It's the 10th anniversary. We stopped counting after our 1,000th letter.
Wow.
And that was about 5 years ago.
That's incredible. Yeah. So many lives saved from that. You say the pro-life movement needs to take on Hollywood, but there seems to be this antagonism against pro-life. Tell me more, because there seems to be that actors and actresses are hesitant to come out and describe themselves as pro-life.
Yeah, but that's not because of the entertainment industry. That's because of the news media. Think about this. If I'm an actor and actress and I come out as pro-life, the mainstream media is going to nuke me. And then that's going to make me toxic, so casting agents are going to shun me, right? Managers and agents will drop me.
Amongst all the projects you're involved in, you're now behind a new project, Serviam.
Serviam.
Tell me more about it. What is its purpose, and why should pro-lifers be paying attention to what you're doing here?
Well, I really have just one mission, which is to protect the vulnerable from violence. And I think the best way to do that is to tell the truth about the human person, to share the incomparable beauty of the human person. The best way to do that, I think, is through film. And the best way to shelter the vulnerable from violence is Catholic social teaching. And this is the age of the laity. So Serviam exists to advance and defend authentic Catholic social teaching. I founded the Whole Life movement, and I founded it to be a place where we can express authentic Catholic social teaching to allow for a diversity of opinions on prudential issues. We're called to care for the poor. What's the best way to do that?
Right.
Is it to have ever increasing taxes and redistribution of wealth? Is it to liberate the free institutions of civil society like the church to care for the poor or the vulnerable? We can disagree and debate about that, but what we can't debate about is we have an obligation to care for the poor, to protect the vulnerable. We have a preferential option for the vulnerable. I founded Whole Life to do that. The role of Serviam is to fight for and defend authentic Catholic social teaching. Why? Why is this important to me? Because Catholic social teaching is the greatest defender, it's the greatest defense to the vulnerable.
Jason Jones, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
For more information on Jason Jones's new group Serviam, you can go to serviamusa.org. That's it for this edition of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. But before we leave, I want to give a special shout out to an important woman. Happy birthday, Mom. Thank you for saying yes to my life, and I'm very glad Grandmother said yes to your life, her 10th child. I look forward to seeing you all here again next week. Remember, you can reach us anytime at ProLifeWeekly@EWTN.com. Life is a gift. Your life is a gift. God bless.